Okay, great. Awesome. Being live stream. I always want to double check here within the group just to make sure we're seeing it there because there's a little bit of a delay when it says it's live here to when it's actually live. So let's try that. Not showing up yet. Let's try that again. Let's go, folks. Let's go. All right, cool. Here we go. We are live. We're live, confirmed live. All right. So, folks, you're in for a good one today. It's a great session. And, I want to thank, Jonathan for jumping in because, sometimes folks want to jump on here. Sometimes they don't. They can be a little bit shy. They're not sure. And Jonathan was gung-ho. He was really, really open to sharing with the folks. So I really appreciate that. And he's going to be talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. Near and dear, circle prospecting. And it's something, it's a kind of, I was telling, Jonathan before the call, it's a little bit deceptively simple, right? The circle prospecting is kind of weird that way, where of all the outbound prospecting scripts, I think it's the easiest to learn, right? Because I've taught all of my ISAs, I've hired hundreds, if not thousands of ISAs at this point. The first thing we ever taught them when they were working in our call center was circle prospecting. That was the number one script we teach our ISAs because number one, it was the easiest one to teach. It's like in a day they can be good enough, right? And then by the next day they're on the phone, and then the real learning would happen. So I really like circle prospecting. It's probably the kind of prospecting I have personally done the most. And back when I was at KW, I would take the bold course, right? A course about a prospecting course, and I would knock it out of the park by doing like a couple hours circle prospecting a day, right? Because there was something called the Bold 100. You had to do 100 contacts in a week, but if you did 100 contacts in a day, you'd get a special pin, right? I would bust out Mojo Dialer and do it within 3 hours. And once I started collecting like 3 or 4 pins in a row, I stopped doing it. I'm like, I'm not even gonna say anymore because it was so easy for me to have
the shirts get kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's like, so look, I'm just showing off. This is was it 2014? This is before this was like super popular, right? So like, right. I'm just bragging. Now I'm just doing it for brownie points. Doesn't really matter, right? But I've always had a great experience with circle prospecting, and I love meeting agents out in the wild, right? They're doing it and having success with it. So, folks, Jonathan, welcome to the group. Welcome to the show. I guess this is the show. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are, right? How did you get into real estate, right? What market do you serve? And tell us why circle prospecting. How'd you stumble upon that lead generation method? Go for it, man.
Sure. So who I am, I'm Jonathan Tiedman. I'm in Lexington, Columbia, South Carolina. And I am just like every other person, right? So before 2021, I was a vendor at Frito-Lay. I delivered chips, put them on the shelves. Great time. I enjoyed my job. And then I hurt my back. So I couldn't do anything more labor intensive. So I couldn't pick up things, stuff like that. My wife was in real estate for 4 months at the time, had closed 2 deals, wasn't super active. We didn't depend on her income. So there was never really a need to push it. It was more something she did as a hobby. And then so now when I was confronted with this issue where I couldn't work anymore, I had to try and come up with something. So I hopped on board real estate with her. And I've always been one that is completely fine talking to people. I went into these stores as a vendor. I'd meet different managers, different people, was able to talk them into putting in displays, helping their business by helping my business. Everyone wins. And I was able to translate that essentially into real estate, right? The deal only works if everyone wins. And so the concept is super simple, just like circle prospecting. Everything is super simple. It's just how you take action to perform those tasks and how you explain to people how you're doing those tasks is where the trouble comes in. If you don't seem like you know what you're talking about, you honestly don't know what you're talking about. I mean, that's just essentially what it boils down to. If you're nervous about it, well, here's the thing. There's a fine line between being nervous and being uncomfortable. Because in real estate, if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong. You want to be uncomfortable. You want to be stepping outside your comfort zone to constantly keep pushing and driving your business. And so for circle prospecting, for me, since I was able to recognize that I was comfortable talking to people and having those uncomfortable conversations, I decided to try my hand at cold calling. And so I popped up some Brandon Morenin videos. I popped up some Ricky Carruth videos. And I just started watching and learning as much as I could. Those guys are well known for their cold calling influences in real estate. And so I tend to find myself leaning more towards a Ricky Caruth style than it is a Brandon Moran. But I feel like the right cold calling script is the one that you actually use. And so if you can pick up the phone every day and go through your calls and actually make those calls, you'll see results once you start to get comfortable with the tools that you're using every day. So I would cold call. There was that fear, right? That procrastination, that hesitation. I'd sit in my office and I'd be like, oh, look at the ceiling fan spinning. And I wouldn't make my calls. And I'd kind of push it off to the side. But then I would find my motivation. I'd get myself in the right mentality and I'd start dialing. And I would call. And you're right. I didn't get my first deal, my first call. I didn't get it my second call, third call, fourth call, fifth call. As a matter of fact, there was a time when I got voicemail and I told them their phone number to call me back on because I was looking at the screen, reading the number. And I was like, hey, call me back at this number. It was their number. So I hung the phone up in embarrassment. I hung my head low. And that was like, okay, you really can't screw up worse than that. And things went well going forward on that. Did I answer your who and your why?
Yeah, definitely. I think that really helped, Jonathan. Appreciate that. And there's a lot of things. You said a lot of stuff. I want to peel it back a little bit. One, I love that you're a Frito-Lay guy because one of my salespeople, one of my best salespeople, Alex on the sales team, he's with PepsiCo, so it's the same thing, right? So he would do the cookies and displays in the stores, right? So yeah. He's like, you got to have the gift of gab, right? Because people that don't know what we're talking about, they're thinking that people just have to fill, the display every day. No. This is a sales job. You're competing for that space, and you're competing against other vendors, and you always have to get more products in there. So I really appreciate that interaction you have to have. It's a hustle. You gotta sell. It's not just about restocking shelves. That's easy. But you have to actually get more product in the store. And this is another thing I thought was crazy. You got to get it closer to the cash register, right? The closer it is, like the better it is, or try to get it on the right, like next to the register. All these things, right? So, and those companies, there's a reason, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, these are like Fortune 100 companies, like they know their stuff, right? They know their stuff. It's great. I love that as a school, as a learning area, because they've got their processes down. And there is no, I didn't meet my quota, right? Those are not easy jobs, to do. And it's all about sales, the sales-driven job. As much as it's a physical labor job, that's the easy part. The hard part is actually get selling. So I love that aspect of it. I love you coming from that, right? Because you have to chat a lot of people up. And you constantly got to be put into these, uncomfortable situations with mom and pop, stores, essentially, right? Store owners, small business owners. So I love that interaction, that piece. And so this makes a lot of sense to me now. Like jump into circle prospecting isn't that big of a stretch. Like, okay, you had some practice talking to people, right? And talking to them, building that relationship, and trying to go for that sale. So I identify with that. I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you said something really interesting too, right? Like the best script is the one you use. The best script is the one you actually use. And and I love Brandon and I love Ricky. Both of them are amazing. I think Ricky's more of a circle guy than Brandon is in practice, but they're both amazing. But you're right? This is circle, especially circle, more than the other kinds of prospecting, is not so much about having the perfect script. It's not really that much about that. You can basically take any circle prospecting script, Ricky's, Brandon's, mine, anyone's. But the difference between a perfect script and a 90% good script is how many times you're going to say it a day, right? Like how many people are you going to deliver that script to? And I'm trying to remember another salesperson, another coach, who was the extreme example of this. He would make, I think, over 1,000 calls a day. And all he would ask, would you like to sell your home? That's his script. He would just say that hundreds of times a day. And you're going to get business from that, okay? He wouldn't even go into the scripting, neuro-linguistic programming part of it. He's like, you want to sell your home? You want to sell your home? You want to sell your home? Would you like to sell your home? That's what, and I'm trying to think of the name, I forgot it, but that is the extreme example of say one thing 300 times to 300 people a day. One of them is going to be interested. One of them is going to say yes, right? So circle is more about that. But tell me, Jonathan, there were times So tell me, you start doing this, you start picking up the phone, making those first few calls, because usually a month in is where I see most people give up on this. Like, oh, but this is not going anywhere. I'm not getting any listing appointments from this. There's nothing coming from this. I got to try something different. Not like, lying is the devil. Be real, 100% real here. From when you started calling to when you got your first real appointment with a seller, like something that wanted to have you over with the intention of listing, how long was that? Give people like a real number, a real estimate of how long they have to do this, and give us some real numbers. Did you do it half an hour a day at the beginning, then bump it up to an hour a day? Tell us the real numbers from your experience with this kind of prospecting method. Go for it.
The real numbers would be, I tried to call for 3 hours a day and I struggled, right? That fear, that don't want to call, that reluctance. So realistically on the phone, I would call an hour, maybe an hour and a half every day. And there would be days where I missed it, where I was working a different side of things and I would miss my calls, and I told myself I would need to be more disciplined about it. But realistically, on average, I called an hour a day.
What time of day? Just would it change, or would it always be the same? What was your schedule like?
9 to 10.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. And so from when I first started cold calling to my first real listing appointment was 2.5 to 3 months.
There you go. I love that, because I usually tell folks, if you're expecting this to bear fruit in less than 90 days, you got to reset that expectation, because it's not, right? And I love that. Because that seems exactly on time for me. That seems like exactly the moment when when you should start getting serious with this. How did you go through 3 months almost of not seeing any concrete progress? What kept you in the chair, trusting the process? How did that work?
Realistically, people like you. And I'm not saying that because you're on the line with me or to flatter you. It was people who are in the business, who've established a business, who've done it. Brandon, the Ricky, the you, who are like, you're not going to see results. It's not going to happen. They're very honest with you, right? So when I start sitting in my chair and I'm not crushing deals, I don't think super highly of myself, but I like to think I'm not the worst person in the world. So when I'm not making it happen like I expect to, well, then that's what I was told. Why would I expect anything different? Yeah, and so continue to put my nose to the ground, work it. And then I want to say, I cannot let you get off this call until I tell you a story. And so we can talk about it now, or we can go through the questions. Okay.
Run with it. Go for it.
When I tell you that I closed 7 deals in 8 months, that's 100% true. What I didn't tell you was that I had $1 million deal under contract, where it was set up, both sides came from cold calling. And so I had called the client in March and talked to him, and he was very arrogant, very willing to talk about things. He's like, I want a 5-bedroom house, 3-car garage. And he just went through all these things he wanted. I'm, Mr. New Real Estate Agent. Yeah. I got writing that down right now.
This came from a circle call.
Yep. So I sold a house in the neighborhood. And so I circle prospected that area, and he lives in that area. And so he's telling me everything he wants. And then he's like, but my credit's shot. Call me in March, or call me in a month. And I'm like, okay, what do I have to lose, right? All I do is jot it on my calendar, call him in a month. So I called him back up, and I'm like, hey man, just wanted to give you a follow-up call. I know you were looking for this, this, and this. Just wanted to see if you were in a better spot or what your situation is. And he's like, I think we can probably make something happen now. Let me get my lender on the phone. He calls his lender, he talks to me, he's pre-approved, ready to go. And then so we start looking at houses, and he's looking at houses, $450,000 to $500,000 houses. And he's, I don't really like this one. I don't really like this. Kept looking. He's like, man, I really would love to be in this neighborhood, but I don't like this one house that's for sale. Well, if you want something to do with the neighborhood and you don't like one house, there are probably 75 to 150 other houses in that neighborhood who are very similar. Don't know if they want to sell their house yet or not. So I picked up the phone again, and I called that neighborhood, and I found.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Now I know where this is going. And now I'm even happier now. I'm very impressed, because Jonathan, you're doing what I wish every agent did, right? Every agent and their mom when they've got the buyers and they know what they want and they know where they want it, and there's not enough inventory, because that's like half the country right now. There isn't enough inventory, right? There isn't enough inventory. Went down this quarter. I don't know if people know that. Went down after like spiking up towards the end of the year. There's less inventory now than we had a few months ago. Pick up the phone, people. Pick up the phone. You've got what they want. You've got buyers. You've got buyers,
Absolutely.
right? So I'm loving this, John. Keep going, man. Keep going. I almost jumped out of my seat here, knowing where this is going. So keep going. There's music,
So-
music to my ears.
I was calling that neighborhood and I got in touch with someone and went through, hey, this is what's going on. We're looking for this. Would you have any interest or entertaining us and at least thinking about selling? Obviously, you're not ready to move. My buyer is more than willing to offer you like essentially a severance from your house package, which is something I had talked to him about. So now there's incentive, right? There's not only fair market value, but a little trouble for your time. People love money. You'd be surprised. And so he was like, sure, why not? So it came in there and it was a beautiful house. Outdated, as I seem to find most of the houses in South Carolina are. There was green carpets and things like that, but it was a large home. It was like 3,400 square feet, 5 bedroom, 3-car garage. It checked all the boxes that he was looking for. And I talked to him, the seller, and I talked to him, the buyer, and told them about agency, right? Because obviously I'm looking at a dual agency for this. He's not with anybody else. My buyer's listing through me. Explained to them what their options were, like that, and they said, "Well, this is him seller." He says, "Jonathan, you've done all of the work to try and make this deal happen, but I would like to have a realtor friend of mine look over all of our documents and make sure everything's squared away and everything's good." Like, okay, sure. So I actually wound up meeting that realtor agent, talked to her, told her that I appreciated her time trying to make this happen, and offered her a 15% commission to help make this transaction work. They had a very strong relationship with this other agent. I was this new guy coming in trying to get their home to sell their home. I was fine with that. And so everything went well. We went through the home inspection process, and there were 3 leaks in this house behind the walls that were tearing this house apart. And so the deal fell apart, but it wasn't because neither one of them wanted to. It was because of the leaks. And so those are going to happen. That was my $1 million deal that got flushed down the drain.
Okay. No, but hey, the opportunity, man, you went out and you created that opportunity. Now, guess what? I'm going to take a couple second pause. I'm going to jump over to my phone because my internet connection is popping in and out. Let me actually just jump on the phone. Give me 1 sec.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Here we go. That's hopefully going to run a lot smoother. My wired internet connection is going nuts right now. I have no idea why, but I mean, that is an amazing story, right? That is an amazing story of taking. So number one, you generated the buy side through Circle, right? So through cold calling. Yep. And one of the things that's probably one of the hangups of Circle prospecting is that you can generate a lot of buyer, leads, a lot of buyer traffic. Some people hate that. They use Circle specifically as like a seller or listing. They see it as listing generating activity, which it mostly is. But through that activity, you're going to find both, actually. You're going to find both buyers and sellers. It's just a natural, someone that's moving up, moving down, a renter that wants to get their first property. I mean, that is just a given, a byproduct of the activity. So you didn't shy away from that. You actually followed up the buyer that came from prospecting, and you took that initiative to go find them something out in the market. So I love that story. It just shows the potential. It's the potential that's there from having real estate focused conversations every single day. So absolutely. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing, right? So Jonathan, tell me a little bit more. Let's get down into like the nitty gritty, right? So walk someone through how, doing this activity like step by step. I mean, you had to get a dialer, you had to get some data, and then you had to set up a time to actually do the calls. And then at some point, I'm guessing you're collecting these, I call them nurtures, right? Nurtures, qualified seller leads, you get them in there, and you've got to do some follow-up. At some point, first you're just doing prospecting, getting people on the list. Then you're doing follow-up calls. Once you start getting follow-up calls, how do those work? You have to set up some time to do those as well. So walk me through the details, like you were explaining to someone wants us to do this for the very first time. Go for it.
Okay, so for the very first time, if we're going into the nitty gritty, the very first time is understanding the monetary value behind real estate versus a 9 to 5 job, which is where I came from, right? I worked my 9 to 5 job, very happy. I went to work, came home, had no worries, and everything was fine. And I made my check and thought life was good. And then I started jumping into this real estate thing where now I could hear people have a conversation about how they lost $10,000, $15,000, and they still look like they were doing fine. And I couldn't fathom losing money like that. So making that initial thought process change, and here's how I did it, is I started out small, right? So I looked at my information platforms, right? Vulcan 7, RedX, things like that. And I tried to see what was going to be a balance between information given to me versus how much it costs. And RedX is where I found my balance. I didn't start out with the dialer because I couldn't afford one. So it was good old.
Boom.
Nope.
One by one.
And so that's how what initially got me started, right? I would be able to make, if I had 2 or 3 substantial conversations, I'd be able to make like 30 calls, just by using my fingers. I didn't dial fast. I'd hit the wrong number. And so it wasn't until later I got the dialer, but driving forward, that's how I initially set it all up.
You didn't even have a dialer. So you just like picked up the phone and just dialing for dollars, like hardcore, one by one. Who cares? Let me get started with it. Wow.
Yep. And then once I was able to implement the dialer, obviously I was able to make more phone calls, have those conversations, and set up those appointments. Now, you said you wanted me to talk about my follow-ups. So my follow-ups, excuse me. If you've never been to South Carolina, pollen here is ridiculous. So my follow-ups would be, I would set up a custom appointment on my calendar, Google Calendar, to set a reminder, because I didn't have, I had a CRM through my brokerage, but I wasn't familiar with the platform because I was learning all of this real estate stuff at once. And so initially I would set up calendar dates to send me a reminder of when to call these people. If they were interested, I would obviously set that appointment. If they said call back at this date, I would put that on my calendar. And then the people who I called who didn't answer, I would call back a week or a month later, depending on which part of my cold calling process it was.
I got this. So and tell me, because these follow-ups, they add up, right? They start to add up. We're just start with one a month, and then maybe a couple a month, and you got multiple a month. So as you got more people in the pipeline, do you continue to manage it with your calendar? Just set up those reminders on a daily basis, or how do you manage that right now? Because that goes from being like one here and there every now and then to at some point you've got follow-ups every day to make, right?
Yeah. So after I was able to implement my calendar follow-ups, I started to learn more about my CRM that was provided to me through my brokerage, and I would do weekly emails. My weekly emails would be information about the market, information about the area, and then I would pick a home of the week that I liked on the spotlight. And so that would be my kind of keep me in your mind type touch. And then for my actual follow-ups, I would just, hey, are these people interested in this time frame? I would set those dates. I still set those dates to this day through calendar. If you think you'll have some kind of substantial interest in real estate in this time frame, I have it and I call you then. And so if I talk to you and you say, oh, I'm not quite ready yet, it'll be a little bit longer, I have it and I call you then. Same thing, calendar. This is a losing fight, Gus, huh?
I know, man. Seriously, it's one of those days. But I think I'm back, and I'm on 2 separate networks, by the way. So this is like a bigger initiative. So you lost me at right. You're got these accumulated. Then you started using the CRM in your broker. If if you repeat the last 30 seconds and make sure I get back up to speed with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I finally was able to spend more time in real estate and learn how to use my CRM, not to the most of its effectiveness, but I would implement a weekly email, which would have information about the market, information about the area, right? A certain event or thing that might be happening, something cool that you can bring your family to, and then a listing that I thought was pretty cool, whether it's super nice for the price or if it's in an area that really is focused on the event that we're going to, things like that. Hey, this is right around the corner from this event. So if you like things in that like it, that there's a venue there. Now you might be interested. And so that was my cold, keep me in the back of your mind type contacts. For people who said they would have an interest, I still use that calendar to this day.
Love
So
it. Love that.
I take it. Hey, I'll be interested in 6 months. Great. I'll call you in 3. I don't tell them that, right? In 3 months, they're getting a call from old Johnny boy.
Exactly. I love that. So you're combining the email shout out. Did you get that from Ricky, or that's something you kind of landed on your own?
Ricky.
That email follow-up piece from Ricky, right? So I love, shout out to Ricky. That's a great suggestion, right? Because at least you want to get there. The very least, the caller should serve you to get an email, and he always recommends put it somewhere. Use that email, right? Put it to good use, right? So you're from day one, you're emailing this group of folks you get every week, and you're sending that email out once a week. Nothing too crazy, nothing too aggressive. You're just reaching out to them once a week, right?
Yeah.
I gotcha. I love that. So, and if my math is correct here, Jonathan, you 7 deals in 8 months. The first 3 are just building the pipeline. So it's really more like 7 deals in 4 months, right? As of month number 4 is when the deals actually started coming in, when they actually started showing up. As far as deals closed that originated from circle prospecting, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And it tends to have like a cascading effect, right? So until you're really a year into it is when you see the big ROI from something like circle prospecting. And I love telling this story. One of our clients out in Seattle, we helped them build a list of 1,000 people, sellers, that wanted a follow-up call, right? Or that wanted, they were going to be ready later in the year. Same thing, right? 1,000 people. And that kept them busy for, I think, 5 years, just so people know. Kept them busy for 5 years. You accumulate 1,000 follow-ups. I don't care what it's, maybe they're from the phone book, right? But if you have 1,000 people that are interested in talking to you at some point about real estate, that's going to keep you busy, right? That's going to keep you busy probably for years. And this is not a small time, a producer, 50 plus transactions per year, 50 plus transactions, but he was never afraid of the phone. And he was open to having conversations with people that he didn't know, right? So I think that is, one of those like mind-blowing, facts and activities. So now that you're just getting started, right? You're just kind of at the tip of the iceberg, but you're starting to see those returns. And those returns are only going to accelerate, right? They're only going to accelerate the more people that are in your list. I think the more people that are in your list. So, Jonathan, tell me, what have been some of the more difficult objections or situations that have been thrown your way through circle prospecting? Because a lot of times we prepare for those expired objections or those for sale by owner objections, and those can be complicated. Those are different kinds of calls. But through circle prospecting, has anyone ever thrown you a curveball or kind of a memorable call that you can think of that kind of like you didn't know how to react in the moment, and then you kept thinking about that later on? Any interesting calls from circle prospecting?
Yeah. So one of the most memorable objections I had was someone was willing to talk to me about possible listing, but the only thing they wanted to talk about was numbers, right? I called them up, hey, this is John, yada yada, brokerage, started the whole conversation, things were going well. And she said, well, I'll only list my house if I could sell it for $350,000. Now, the area that she was in, she was probably looking more like 260. So she was like 90K over, which is no small amount. I'm trying to talk the seller off the ledge.
Holy cow.
And I wasn't ready for that conversation. Now, should that happen today, I think I might be able to handle that conversation. But at the time, that was, oh, well.
Out of the blue.
If you could get that, and I could probably get this for my house, and probably not the right answer. And then the seller hung up on me.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, no, and I think people, and here's another thing, John, you tell me this is true. A lot of times folks focus on the role play and learning and the objection handling. And again, this is true for all prospecting, but it's especially true for circle. You get better at it by doing it, okay? You don't need, Ricky or Brandon giving you advice in the other ear to get better at this, because you're doing it's fairly obvious, right? How to get better at it, because you're having these conversations in real time. You're seeing the reaction. And sometimes you're going to get thrown those objections. And there are ways to respond better to those objections. So, I mean, there's people you can ask. You can Google some of these objections, right? And kind of find the response to them. But you're gonna get better at it by the repetition and just being smart about it. Okay, great. That was an interesting one. I went nowhere. How could I answer that one better the next time? Because
Yep,
here's the thing, the
100%.
clients know their scripts. The sellers, they know their scripts, right? There's only, and you tell me, there's only really a few. Every now and then you'll see something unique, something interesting, right? But that's rare. That
Yep.
is rare in these kinds of situations, right? So it's really, 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 really different when you find someone that has something unique to throw your way. That's why I know it's memorable, because it doesn't happen very often, right? Where people are really going to stump you on some of these calls. It can become a memorable experience. So, Jonathan, why don't you walk us through your script? What is the intro to your script sound? When you're making calls like this, you're circle prospecting around one of your listings, let's say, or one of your deals. What does that call sound like? The first 10, 20 seconds.
First 10, 20 seconds is, hey, this is Jonathan with Century 21, 803 Realty. How are you doing today? Believe it or not, that's it. And I just wait and see what they say.
And I love that, because I always tell folks, in a circle prospecting script, that's the intro. Otherwise, anything much longer than that, maybe another sentence in there, maybe tops. That's all that's all they're gonna listen to. Okay, that's it. That's pretty much all the chance you're gonna get.
I did ask my broker to change the company name, because Century 21 803 Realty is a lot of words for a cold calling script. And I was like, can we shorten it here? Shorten it here. He's like, no. I'm like, this is hard.
Sorry, bro. Can't help you there. No, I love that, because it's the simplicity, John. It's the simplicity of it. It is, you say that enough times a day, and you're going to get business from that. So, Jonathan, what did your numbers look like, right? So you said about an hour and a half of calling every day. Did you have a certain goal you wanted to hit other than the time? Was it a certain number of calls, a certain number of contacts? Let's fast forward to today. If we're doing these calls now, what if any metrics do you keep? And remember, give us the truth, man, 100% straight up. What do you use to track progress, if at all? What numbers do you focus on nowadays?
It's difficult to track the progress through the Red X, because the dialer that they have will keep track of your stats at the bottom. And so I was trying to use that. I would look to have 10 to 20% contact to dialed, and make sure that I'm actually getting people picking up the phone. And then I would look at, of those 10 to 20 people that answered, how many emails did I get, right? Because that was the goal of my conversation, is the email. And then if they're more interested, try to move it into an appointment. The email was the first step. And so of those 10 to 20 people, I want at least 25% return, so 5, right? 2 to 5 emails out of those 20, out of those 200. And so that was my goal. If I could get 2 to 5 emails every day, 5 days a week, I'm looking at 10 to 50, 10 to 25 emails. Math is not great for me. 2, 5, yes, 10 to 25 emails over the course of the year. I'm looking at a couple hundred emails of people that I'm once a week just set up, click, and then it happens to this day. My emails, people will email me back. They'll follow up my email. Hey, I've been to this. This was a great event. Or thank you so much for recommending this. I didn't know this was happening. And it's nothing about real estate at all, but the conversations that I'm now having with homeowners that are thinking about me because I just told them about something.
I got you. I love that. And thanks for walking that through, because that's a really good contact rate, actually. If you make 200 calls and talk to, 20 people, that's a really good, ratio. I love that. That's the first thing, right? That's like step number one. If you're not talking to those people, I don't care what you're saying or how awesome your follow-up is. It's just going to take way, way, way longer. But having that 10%, that 5 to 10% contact rate, which is what you would typically get, I love that, because that's right where, where you should be. 5 to 10%. I find that 5 to 10% is pretty average, across the country. There's always pockets will be a little bit more, a little bit less. But on average, you want to be in that like 5 to 10% contact rate. And then you said it was 2 to 5 emails out of that. So like another, let's say 10 to 20% conversion rate to get the email from those conversations, right?
And then I want you to picture of all those numbers we just talked about. I told you 2 to 5 people are willing to give me their email, right? I don't know. I don't give my email out over the phone. I don't really know you, things like that. Imagine that I'm now going to make you sell your house with me. You don't know it yet, but I'm going to be your best friend. I'm going to sell your house. It's going to be a great time. Think from, an email that you don't want to tell me to now you trust me with your biggest financial asset in your life. It's crazy.
I know 100%, right? But I love that. So let's walk back that process. It is making 200 calls a day. It is talking to 20 people, simple math, 20 people a day, and getting 2 emails a day, right? I like that. 222, right? That's a baseline of where you want to be at. We do better for sure. That's a baseline. And then emailing them once a week. What does that email look like? What is the process to get that email? Is that something you get off the web, something from Ricky, or do you come up with it, every single week and kind of like, hey, we're gonna email my audience, it's your audience, right? What am I gonna email my audience about this week? Is that like a process for you now?
It's a process, but it's much more streamlined since I've been doing it a little bit longer now. So I get emails from other people the same thing to me that I do to my clients. I have lenders that I work with, partners who are interested in making things happen. So they'll send me information like, hey, rates are today or this. I'm like, if that number is interesting, well, copy paste. I'm taking that and putting that in your email. And maybe I'll throw your picture on there as a shout out blast. This person is great. Check them out. This is the information she gave me today. And then underneath that, I'll have something not to do with real estate at all. And that's going to be an antique shop on the corner of 5th and 22nd. You guys need to check that out. I was there. This was what happened. Maybe a picture of me holding something, or maybe not me at all. They just have great deals. And then I'll put a listing of the week where I found it was either tied or related or close to that area, or it'll be just something that I thought was interesting, like maybe the quality of the prints to the price, something like that. Something they call.
I got this. You've got some news. You've got some real estate news. You combine it with some local news, local business owner, and then a listing of the week, something that caught your eye about a listing currently in the market. Now that's super, very straightforward. I love that variety in that newsletter. We got a little bit of something for everyone.
Yep. And the best part about putting that listing of the week in there is someone will message you and be like, oh, I love this house. And so if you're on a market where inventory is now shrinking, you've already told them that they've lost that house before they've ever even started looking. They know they'll have to move when they go to pull the trigger.
I love that. Absolutely. That's a great one. And then plus, you're featuring some local businesses in there, right? You've got some local shops. So it's always great to have an excuse to talk to other business owners that are in contact with the public, right? I love that aspect of it, because that's another thing that more agents should do. Most agents don't, but more agents should do this. Talk to other business owners, not asking for referrals. That's the wrong conversation to have, right? You're going to get the door slammed in your face more often than not. Yeah, can I drop these business cards off in your your counter? Don't do that. They're going to go in the wastebasket. They're not going to go anywhere, those business cards. You're not you're not giving the business owner a compelling reason to ever talk to you again, right? If you're doing that. But if you go talk to that business owner and tell them you want to feature them in your weekly newsletter, I don't care if it's 50 people, 100 people, 500 people, doesn't matter, but they're local. It's a local newsletter, folks. It doesn't need to go out to 1 million people. If it goes out to 100 people that are local, that is golden for that business owner. And it costs them nothing, right? So when you come from contribution to another business owner like that it's like human nature to do like reciprocity. They're gonna want to wonder what they can do for you in the future. I love you're stacking that goodwill. I love stacking that goodwill, depositing it in the goodwill bank account. So you've always got a balance in your favor with as many business owners as possible. I love that aspect of it too. Has that helped you out at all? Or has that been like a work in progress when you're featuring some of these local businesses in your newsletter?
No, every part of my email. Also, did you see me dying there just now? You got me choked up from that speech. But every part of my email has given me some kind of feedback for my clients.
I love it. I love it, man. So, man, you're really taking this next level. I love it. I'm gonna send a message to Ricky. I think Ricky's gonna love to hear this too, because he's a great guy, and like you're implementing the system. Right? You're doing it on the ground. You're making it happen. I love that. So Jonathan, take us to present day, right? What got you thinking about adding an ISA to your business? Because you're already starting with Circle. You're doing it every day. You're starting to get 1, 2, 3 pieces of business from it every single month, once you put some time into it, what got you thinking, I want to add an ISA to this machine, to this system, to this process?
Scale it and bring it next level, right? So I always wanted to do more, and for whatever reason, I could only do an hour a day. And then from that hour a day, I would schedule appointments, I'd have follow-ups, I would do this, that, and all of a sudden I was getting pulled away to help more ready and active buyers and sellers than I could to call. And so an ISA frees me up to where they can make those calls, help me schedule those appointments, and I can start implementing a team to help follow up with all those people who are interested in buying or selling in the near future.
I love that, because if you've been able to achieve 1-2 deals a month just from doing 1 hour a day, folks, that's usually what people spend going getting their coffee and goes in line at Starbucks and then back at the office. That's an hour a day. Don't lie. It's an hour, almost an hour a day, almost an hour a day. So if you put a little bit of that time in the prospect and you start getting these kinds of results, imagine what you can do a few months down the line when you've got someone doing this 8 hours a day, right? 8 hours a day, not doing hand-to-hand combat with FISBOs and expired. The conversation, hey, I'm with Jonathan's team. How can I help you today, right? How can I help you out, right? Just asking a very simple question, but instead of saying it to 10 to 20 people a day, try saying it to 100 people a day, right? More than 100 people a day. What kind of results do you expect from that? So, Jonathan, I appreciate that. I think that's the right thing to do. And a lot of agents, when they are doing this activity and they start to get busy, the first thing they do is that calling kind of goes from an hour and a half to an hour and then to 45 minutes, and then it drops off completely, right? Because they're busy.
Yep.
They're busy. And a month or two later, they're all the way back to where they started from. They're back at zero. Pipeline is dry. But you took a little bit of a different approach. You said, you know what? I'm getting busier. And I know my call time can suffer here and there, but I want to scale up. You're doubling down, right? You're investing into the system. You're scaling it up. So why did you do something different than what most agents do, right? Because you're not like super experienced in real estate. Where did this idea to scale up and double down on what's working come from? Is this just something that was like logical to you, or did someone suggest it?
And so it's an opportunity to continue doing what I love, right? So I see what I can do to help people in their real estate needs. And because I got pulled away from it, I wasn't able to meet and bring in new people as much as I wanted to. So having someone else who can make those calls, right? It's a casual conversation, just like Gus, I've never met you in real life, but if I walked up to you, I'd be able to shake your hand and have a casual conversation. And that's all that needs to happen. So if you can have that casual conversation, and you may have some needs in the future, great. Let's set an appointment with me or my team. Let's get you set up for success, because not every person you call is ready to sell today. It's a process. And so, but now I've already introduced myself. You've already met my team. You've already had an appointment with me. We've already set up all the steps to get you, when you're ready to go and pull that trigger, we're already there ready with you, because we've all been preparing for this.
I got you. So, the ISA, the system, the team is going to allow you to do what you do best, just connect with people and help them out, right? The ISA making that initial call is just making it easier for you to add value where you add the most value in that chain, the value chain. So I love that, because that's exactly what you should be thinking about it. What is the best use of your time, right? Is it talking to the 19 people that won't give you that email, or talking to the one person that was interesting to talk to, right? It was open to having a conversation, open to talking to you. Is it better to make 100, 200 phone calls to talk to one person, or is it better to just talk to that person, right? What is the best use of your time on a daily basis? And I think a lot of people either they don't ask themselves that, Jonathan, or they don't believe it to be true, which I think is even worse, right? They don't believe that to be true. They'd rather do kind of that grunt work, or try to look for the other thing that seems easier than that. It just seems easy. They don't want to put in the work. I think both things can be a mistake. When you don't think you have to put in the work, because you do, or that you don't believe that that's the highest and best use of your time, which is not, it's never going to let you scale. It's never going to let you scale. If you're doing everything in the process all the time.
What would you say a realtor is? Like, how would you describe a realtor?
Oh,
What do they do? Right? Just
I,
keep it
I,
short, simple. What would you say a realtor is?
I love that question. So my answer to that, what do I think a realtor is a professional salesperson. And what does a professional salesperson do? They take appointments and close deals, right? That's my definition of what the real estate agent is from the sales perspective. They're a salesperson first and foremost, right? And
And how
people, I
many?
debate with people on that. That's my definition of what a realtor is.
Do you know anyone who would tell you that a realtor, if you said, "Hey, what does a realtor do?" Right? A child asks you, "What does a realtor do?" You're not going to tell them, "Oh, they have conversations with people," or they talk to people. They're really good at talking. They're really good listeners, right? We are, but by definition, that's not what we do. What we do is we're informants about the market. We know what's happening. We keep up to date on current events, possible opportunities for people, and then we convey that information and protect them through the process and our fiduciary responsibilities. That sounded like I knew what I was talking about, right? But no one will ever say we just have good conversations. And so that's why it's important to continue these phone calls and conversations where I can focus on the realtor side of things and less on trying to make these calls, is because that'll come to me with the help of what you guys have been helping, what you guys do, what you guys have built.
I love that, because I think the best use of an ISA, let's focus on the ISA part of it. The best use of an ISA is to plug them into a system that works. Okay. That is the highest and best, the most amazing use of someone helping you, is not to go and discover what circle prospecting is about, right? Oh, let's see if this can work. It's riskier. Not saying it can't work. It can work for sure. The risk you're taking on is larger, because if it doesn't work, you don't know if it's the list, if it's the ISA, if it's the dialer, or if it's you as the agent that don't know how to take those leads to the finish line, right? Or you're one of those agents that can get very frustrated because when you talk to someone from your sphere, they're listing with you within 30 days. You talk to someone from circle prospecting, 90 days out, they might still not be ready. And that's not a failure, actually. Okay. That is not a failure. That's the process. That's the game. And I think the frustration, the root of the frustration with a lot of agents, not just with circle, with any other kind of lead generation, is that your expectation does not meet reality. Your expectation is over here and reality is down here. And that produces anger, resentment, anxiety, frustration, and you're going to give up and try something different because your expectation is completely out of whack, right? So, Jonathan, story, because you got some really good advice from, some great coaches out there, and yours truly, appreciate that. And you ran with it, and you implemented, you executed, and were able to replicate those results, right? In the appropriate time frame. This isn't, like some kind of amazing case study where, oh my God, I got my listing. I talked to those folks. They get a listing within 30 days and think that's normal. That's not normal from this kind of work, right? That's not normal, but that's not going to stop you from being successful, okay? That's not going to stop you from being successful. Get a system and plug an ISA into a system, whether that's generating those seller leads from circle prospecting, or converting those inbound buyer leads, or having combat with those physicals and expireds. Your likelihood of success is probably 10 times more if your ISA is going into a proven system than if you're going to go into an adventure and hope, cross your fingers that things work out, right? Your chances of success are very, very different in one scenario versus the other. But Jonathan, you know what? We're almost out of time. I appreciate you, man. I really want to thank you for jumping on here, dealing with these crazy internet issues, but having a great conversation. Thank you so much again for being on here and sharing, right? You're coming from contribution.
Absolutely.
I love that. Hey, Jonathan, if people ever want to reach out to you, maybe continue the conversation, what is the best way to reach you?
Best way for them to reach me would be they could follow my YouTube channel, which would be Lexico Group on YouTube.
Love it. We'll drop a link here below the interview here on the video. We'll drop a link, Lexico Group YouTube channel. I love that. That's amazing. So, great. Here, follow-up question. Do you use that content in your newsletter, or how do you currently use your YouTube channel?
So I use my YouTube channel to bring hyper focus to the area. So I use it to review the lake. I use it to review neighborhoods. I use it to review restaurants. And I say right? This is my wife's idea. She's the genius behind the YouTube channel. So all credit goes to her. But my name's on it too, so I'm taking it in this aspect.
There you go. No, that's great. I love it because and I want to get him in the group talking about this. A really smart guy that I know is recommending every agent do this, and his name is Coach Brandon. And I think that's a really smart move by you guys because that is what still right now in the spring of 2023, right? We're almost there. Is a great strategy for most agents to do because people love that hyper focus, right? Hyper niche content, hyper niche. Not just talking about moving to Lexington, right? But of which subdivision within Lexington to move into, which neighborhood within Lexington. Are people generating content around that? And there's no one better to generate this content than real estate agents, right? Because you guys
100%.
live and breathe that community, that area, and you always want to get out and talk about how awesome those places are. So that's really smart, man. So I love that.
Thank you.
Cherry on top of the conversation. So send the link over to me because I'm going to drop it here in the interview. And again, Jonathan, thank you so much, man.
All right, will do. Thanks, guys.
Right.